Welcome. In this video, we'll explore a fascinating and complex topic. Is modern capitalism causing an existential crisis? We'll discuss how the search for life's meaning clashes with consumerist world, drawing on ideas from philosophers, from Karl Marx to contemporary thinkers, and also looking at the influence of social media and technology. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel, give this video a like, and share your thoughts in the comments. We want to know if you too have felt that existential void in modern life. By the way, if you find this topic interesting, we have a video on the Frankfurt School where we delve into many of these issues. So check it out after this. The existential void in modern capitalism. In recent decades, it's become common to hear that even though capitalism has brought material prosperity, many people experience an existential void, a feeling of lacking purpose or meaning in their lives. Why does this happen? Some philosophers and sociologists suggest that the capitalist system itself commodifies almost every aspect of human life, from our work to our leisure, and this may be eroding our sense of identity and purpose. Under capitalism, so many things, from our social relationships to our passions, become commodities to be bought and sold, promoting alienation, a feeling of being estranged from one's work, creations, and community. As a result, existential crises intensify because it's hard to find authenticity and meaning in an environment where everything seems reduced to its market value. Is this analysis resonating with you? If so, hit the like button and let us know in the comments if you've ever felt your life becoming automatic or meaningless due to a routine of work or consumerism. We want to hear about your experience. Many argue that this feeling of emptiness is not just melodrama, it has real foundations. In fact, global statistics show alarming data. For example, according to a Gallup report, only 21% of employees worldwide feel engaged with their work, which implies about 79% work without enthusiasm or motivation. That's almost 8 out of 10 people. No wonder phrases like, "I work, they pay me," and a story, "No aspirations here," resonate in so many offices. That's how one surveyed Argentine worker described his day-to-day, summed up in one word: monotonous. This massive indifference toward one's own work suggests that millions do not find personal fulfillment in their daily jobs, feeling disconnected from what they do. Put plainly, many work in something that deep down they feel is not worthwhile. Anthropologist David Graeber even proposed the term bullshit jobs to describe jobs that not even the workers themselves consider socially useful. To the surprise of many, surveys in the United Kingdom and the Netherlands found that about 37% to 40% of workers believe their jobs are empty or meaningless. Imagine spending 40 hours a week doing something that you yourself consider useless. Under capitalist logic, then there is no shortage of people's stories about feeling like replaceable cogs, performing repetitive tasks just to earn money and consume, caught in a cycle of dissatisfaction. It's akin to the famous hamster on a wheel. You run and run, work and consume, but feel you're not moving toward anything meaningful. This can lead to a deep existential anguish. Questions like, why am I doing all this? Or, is this all there's to life? Arise frequently. The existential problem in capitalism isn't a lack of material goods, but a lack of meaning once basic needs are satisfied. In fact, after World War II, many philosophers noted that in affluent societies, people began to suffer a diffuse malaise despite having comfort. It was a feeling that life lacks purpose, a sense of anomie or absence of direction. Marxism, alienation, and the meaning of life. To understand where this idea comes from that capitalism affects our sense of life's meaning, we must go back to Karl Marx in the 19th century. Marx, besides being an economist, was a profound analyst of the human condition under industrial capitalist society. He observed that in capitalism, workers face alienation, a state in which one feels separated from what one produces, from the activity one performs, from one's own human essence, and even from other human beings. What did he mean by this? Marx noticed that in a factory, for example, the worker makes a product, but that product doesn't belong to him. It becomes something alien, controlled by the capitalist and sold on the market. The worker puts in his effort but feels his work is not for himself, but for someone else. Moreover, by repeating mechanical tasks dictated by others, the worker becomes disconnected from his creativity and his essence, what Marx calls a human species being. Instead of self-realizing through work, the person feels that work goes against himself, that it brings no satisfaction, and does not reflect his identity. And finally, this dynamic creates barriers between people. Co-workers compete with each other, or human relationships are mediated only by money and utility, breaking community bonds. Marx defined 4 facets of alienation. 1. Alienation from the product of your work, which becomes strange to you and dominates you. 2. Alienation in the work process itself. You feel that your activity is not truly yours. 3. Alienation from your own human essence. You see yourself as a stranger, disconnected from your creative nature. And 4. Alienation from others. Relationships with people become cold or instrumental. All of this sounds technical, but in practice it's that feeling of I'm just another cog in the machine, or my work doesn't represent who I am. For Marx, this alienation was the key to understanding capitalism and also to overcoming it. He argued that alienation was not something eternal or an inevitable part of the human condition, but a historical product of capitalism, unlike earlier thinkers like Hegel, who saw alienation as a general philosophical condition. Marx insisted that this loss of meaning and control over our lives occurs in a specific economic form based on wage labor and production for the market. In other words, we weren't born doomed to be alienated. Capitalism is what puts us in that state by making us work for a wage for someone else and by turning everything, even our skills and time, into commodities. Therefore, if we change that system, we could regain a sense of fulfillment and purpose in our work and existence. Marx was confident that in a future society without exploitation communism, human beings could work in a creative, cooperative, and fully conscious way toward their purpose, overcoming alienation. Existentialism, anguish from capitalism or from the human condition. Marx's ideas might make us think that if we overthrow capitalism, the existential void would disappear. But another perspective comes from existentialist philosophers who focus on the human condition. Thinkers like Soren Kierkegaard, Friedrich Nietzsche, Jean-Paul Sartre, and Albert Camus explore the idea of the absurd of existence, the idea that life has no inherent meaning given by God or society. Existentialists would say that each feeling person of void isn't exclusive. They also wrote about the anguish that comes with that realization. It's a fundamental part in the mid-20th century universe that existentialists acknowledge the absurdity of absurdity. And that unsettling notionalist view, objectively, is something life has no preassigned purpose. For example, and they argue that this absurdity famously anxiety must imagine and despair if we don't actively create our to push a boulder uphill for eternity. As happy, interpreting that even in a futile, absurd situation, one can choose to create meaning or at least rebel against meaninglessness. Sartre, on the other hand, emphasized radical freedom. Since there's no given essence or purpose to life, we are condemned to be free. We must choose our purpose, and with that freedom comes anguish, because we alone are responsible for those choices. So, an existentialist might argue that the sense of emptiness comes from a general human struggle with meaning, not just from economic systems. They might say capitalism's routine and consumerism can certainly aggravate the feeling, but the root problem, the need to find personal meaning, would still be there even in a different society. In fact, one could point out that even in socialist countries of the 20th century, people face crises of faith and purpose. A lot of oppression led to cynicism there too. The existentialist perspective suggests that no social structure can completely fill the void for us. Each person ultimately has to grapple with it themselves. In short, where Marx saw the issue as largely systemic and solvable by changing the system, existentialists see the issue as intrinsic to the human condition. The Frankfurt School and consumer culture. The conversation doesn't end there. A group of mid-20th century Marxist thinkers known as the Frankfurt School, Theodor Adorno, Max Horkheimer, Herbert Marcuse, Erich Fromm, etc., took Marx's ideas and mixed them with psychology and cultural analysis to explain the modern malaise. They argued that advanced capitalism not only alienates us at work, but also invades our leisure and desires, often in subtle ways. Adorno and Horkheimer, for example, wrote about the culture industry, arguing that under capitalism culture, music, films, etc., is produced en masse like any other commodity, which breeds conformity and dulls critical thinking. Entertainment stops being truly art or expression, and instead becomes a factory output to keep us docile. This, they believed, contributes to that sense of emptiness. We're consuming prepackaged thrills and ideas rather than creating meaning ourselves. Marcuse, in One-Dimensional Man, 1964, went further. He argued that affluent society creates false needs. It convinces us we need this or that product or lifestyle, only to keep us busy working and consuming and satisfying those artificial needs. We neglect our real need for genuine fulfillment and freedom. We become one-dimensional, losing the critical, transcendent dimension of life because we're so immersed in the cycle of production and consumption. From, in his book To Have or Be, explored a similar idea. Modern society encourages us to live in the mode of having, accumulating possessions, status, shallow pleasures, instead of living authentically with love, thought, and meaningful experience. The result? Even when we have more and more, we are less and less. We feel empty because our lives revolve around possessions and not inner purpose. Another powerful critique comes from Guy Debord, who described modern life as a society of the spectacle. In a 1967 work of that name, Debord analyzed how in modern societies, everything tends to turn into mere appearance and image. Life itself becomes a sort of performance or spectacle mediated by screens and advertising. We cease to live directly and instead start to live through representations. Think about social media. Our experiences, identities, even our happiness, often seem validated only when displayed as images to others. Debord's point was that this constant emphasis on image and spectacle distances us from authentic life and genuine social connections. It's yet another way that capitalism can hollow out meaning. By replacing lived reality with a glossy, commercialized facade, all these cultural critiques point to a common idea. Consumer capitalism promises satisfaction and fulfillment, but delivers a simplified, shallow version of it. In the gap between what it promises and what it actually delivers, the existential void blossoms. This void has many faces. There's the emptiness of chasing status and never feeling content, the emptiness of entertainment that momentarily amuses but leaves us spiritually unsatisfied, and the emptiness of social media validation that never quite fills the need for real connection. The Frankfurt School thinkers urged us to be aware of these forces, to remain critical, and to seek a life of depth, to be more than one-dimensional. Otherwise, we end up in what one commentator called a version of bourgeois individualism and intellectual and moral bankruptcy, where subjective feelings of absurdity dominate and no collective vision or higher purpose is offered Marxism. They would argue, put subjective reality and shared struggle at the center, a concrete path to change, whereas an overly individualistic culture leaves people rudderless, each alone with their angst. Social media, technology, and existential emptiness 2.0. We can't talk about modern life without addressing the role of social networks and technology, which add a new layer to these existential dilemmas. If industrial capitalism caused alienation on the factory floor, digital capitalism and the network society might be causing a new form of alienation, more subtle but very widespread. Today, billions of people spend hours on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and other platforms every day. In fact, more than 4.7 billion people use social media worldwide, and the average user spends about 2.5 hours per day on these platforms. We're more connected than ever, but much of this connection is filtered through algorithms and images. Everyone curates their life to look perfect online, and we in turn compare our lives to those idealized images. Research has found a significant correlation between heavy social media use and increased symptoms of depression and anxiety. It's not hard to see why. If you're scrolling through highlight reels of others' lives, you might start to feel that your own life is inadequate or empty by comparison. Moreover, the endless feeds and notifications hijack our attention and time. We can become addicted to the instant gratification of likes, shares, and new content. It's a cycle. You feel bored or empty. You seek distraction on your phone. You get a short dopamine hit, but then it fades and you're back where you started, if not feeling worse. It's a bit like trying to fill a void with junk food. It momentarily eases a craving, but doesn't provide real nourishment. In a very real sense, our devices have become new extensions of the consumer capitalist system, ensuring we are always plugged into some form of commodified experience, be it advertising, influencer lifestyles, or just a compulsion to keep up with the digital world. Some analysts talk about a new type of alienation emerging here. If in
Fear
Marx's
of
time a
missing
worker
out
was alienated
captures
from the
another
product of his
facet.
labor,
We constantly
today
fear that
many
there
of
is
us might
something
feel
exciting
alienated from
happening that
reality
we are
itself,
not part of,
as our
which
digital
pushes
persona
us to stay
and
glued
real
to the
self
social feed.
diverge. We
The
curate an
result is a
identity
constant
online that may
background
get social
anxiety.
reward, but
We
can
have
leave us
more
feeling
to
even more
connect,
empty
yet
or
loneliness
phony
and feelings of
offline.
isolation are
The
rampant.
term FOMO.
Paradoxically, never before have we been so interconnected, and never before have so many people reported feeling alone or without meaning. It's telling that the health authorities are recognizing these issues. The World Health Organization estimates that around 300 million people worldwide suffer from depression and identifies it as a leading cause of disability. While depression is a complex, multifaceted condition, many observers note that our social media saturated, fast-paced modern lifestyle is one contributing factor. When you live in a society that never disconnects, where success is often measured in followers or material gains, and where genuine community bonds have weakened, it's not surprising that anxiety and depression thrive. The existential emptiness becomes almost a default state, a silent epidemic being the metrics of economic growth or online popularity. Conclusion: how to fill the void? We cannot promise a definitive answer to the big question of how to fill the existential void, but we can outline some paths. For some, the answer lies in collective action, finding meaning through changing the society that causes the emptiness. That could mean engaging in social or political movements, creating communities that value people over profit, or working toward a future where work is fulfilling and not just a paycheck. This follows Marx's hope that by transforming the system, we reclaim meaning in our work and life. For others, the answer is more individual, seeking authentic experiences, creativity, and self-knowledge despite the system. This might align more with existentialist advice, since a life's meaning isn't handed to us, we must create it ourselves through our choices, through art, philosophy, relationships, or personal projects. In practice, many people will blend these approaches, try to change what we can externally, and cultivate purpose internally for what we can change. Importantly, mental health professionals and philosophers alike suggest we moderate our engagement with the hollow parts of modern life. That might mean, for example, re-evaluating our relationship with consumer culture, do material things own us, or do we own them, or critically curating our use of social media and technology so they don't abuse us. In concrete terms, maybe it means unplugging from the phone for a while and engaging in face-to-face, meaningful activities. It also means accepting that a certain dose of emptiness is part of life. Not having all the answers all the time is okay. Life isn't completely predictable or totally satisfying 24/7, and pretending otherwise only leads to frustration. A balanced approach would be, appreciate the good that the modern world gives you, knowledge, freedoms, diversity, but be critical of what it takes away, time, attention, authenticity, and claim those things back. Before we go, we invite you to subscribe if you haven't already, so you won't miss our upcoming videos where we continue discussing these existential and social topics. Give this video a like if it offered you something, that also helps give us some sense of meaning in our work, and share your reflections in the comments. Do you believe capitalism truly causes these existential crises? Or are they part of the human condition? Have you found ways to give your life purpose in the midst of all this? We read all the comments and we learn together. Recommended readings. If you want to dive deeper, we recommend some fascinating readings on this topic. You will find all the books and articles mentioned via the pinned link in the description and top comment. Economic and Philosophic Manuscripts of 1844 by Karl Marx, where Marx develops his theory of alienation. One-Dimensional Man by Herbert Marcuse, a critique of consumer society and how it dulls our critical mind. To have or to be, by Erich Fromm, explores the difference between living to possess things vs living to realize our inner self. The Myth of Sisyphus by Albert Camus, on finding meaning in an absurd world, a classic existentialist perspective. Capitalist Realism by Mark Fisher, a postmodern essay on why it seems there is no alternative to capitalism, and how that affects culture and mental health. The Society of the Spectacle by Guy Debord analyzes how in modernity everything becomes representation and image, distancing us from authentic life. Recent studies on social media and mental health, for example, research cited by Hospital Clínic de Barcelona on the effects of Instagram on depression and anxiety. Remember that you can find Alteza resources in the pinned link below to consult them. Happy reading! And above all, let this video serve as a starting point to continue thinking and talking about how to build a life with meaning in our contemporary world. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.